My name's Monk Rowe for the Phileas Jazz Archive. I'm very pleased to have Candace Ivory with me, and I should tell our listeners that I had the pleasure of playing a gig about a month ago with her, and happy to see her again. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
I was going to introduce you as a performer, a teacher, visual artist, educator, songwriter, but I had this vision. I had to make out a form the other day. It didn't even matter what it was, but I had to put down my profession, and there was just this little teeny space. So if you had to do that, what is the one word you would choose?
And it's a complicated thing. Though musicians wear a lot of different hats, artists wear lots of different hats, which is why I just put it all under the moniker of Queen of Avant Soul. That's what I do. It's all under that umbrella. Everything, I just throw it in that pot.
I can see, like, I almost could picture you getting a phone call from some organization like, I'm sorry, that doesn't fit into our category. What made you arrive at that moniker?
It was a long transition. I feel like maybe 15, 17 years ago, I started toying with this idea. I brought it up actually with one of my professors at the time, Reggie Workman. And he's always been like, he does not enjoy the term avant garde. He does not enjoy the term avant. So he was like, I don't want you to be that because it'll mean that you're always ahead of your time. It'll mean that people won't be able to catch up with you. I was like, well, what's new, Reggie? I was like, it seems pretty apropos. And I definitely felt that way as an artist. I felt like I would have these ideas and, they would be ahead of the curve through 2 or 3 years later. You see this same idea or you see, this being implemented. So I do see where Reggie came from with this. But I also felt like it fit me. so so it's about that forward movement of just pursuing life and the soul of life in whatever art form that might be. You know what I mean?
I do, and I can see how he might have. I don't know if this was his concern, but in jazz music, avant-garde usually meant this is challenging music to listen to, and not many people do.
Right, right,
But
right.
when you hook it up with soul, that makes it like soul is listenable. So I think it works.
Well, at the same time, I mean, I consider myself a creative musician, in this same facet, especially vocally. But one thing I noticed about being a vocalist is that very few people actually know what to do with a vocalist. They don't see the vocals as an instrument. And so they don't see this is kind of like all of the range of the things that a voice can do. And that's my passion, is really like pursuing what can a voice do? Why do we need the voice to speak to us? Babies can't talk, yet they can affect us with emotion, giggles, goos, oohs, ahs, cries, screams. They have no words, yet they have the ability to affect us with a vocal or, what's the baby sound? You hear this like, we're doing baby talk. Okay, well, that means that you do have power, whether you have words or not. So the voice carries a lot there that we're just not tapping into. And that's what I'm interested in tapping into.
Do you try to pass that philosophy on to your students?
Absolutely. It's definitely about every aspect of life. And this is challenging for conceptual thinking about a voice when people are thinking about voices. Let me sing this song and It's usually ego driven. Let me be seen as a star. I want to be heard. I want to be, someone people listen to, and that's my chance. So how can I make my voice powerful enough to affect people? So various students come to me for various reasons about their voice, and it's not always musical. Sometimes it's just strictly about confidence. I want to be able to be powerful when I walk in a room. I want to be able to be heard and control with my voice how this room is affected. They'll come to me for things like this. And this is what they should come to a proper voice trainer for, you know?
That's really interesting. And I can see how a mature student might make that connection because if you can stand up and sing in front of a group of people, that's I think it's one of the hardest things to do and certainly would prepare you to deliver a proposal to a chairman of the board or something like that.
Well, you have to be kind of fearless to do it. I mean, the instrument is you. There's no, I try to get people to think about these things conceptually. If you're a vocalist, where's the buttons that make you go? What do you touch? Where's the string? How do you pluck it? So it's very conceptual. You definitely are doing multitasking. You're thinking about lots of things at once. As a vocalist, you're performing a piece, you're interpreting a piece. It's so much to it. And I think that because everybody has a voice, we can confuse this with a, properly trained vocalist or a singer, or there's ranges of skill, there's levels to that skill set, and it really comes down to the interpretation and the consciousness level of the artist. So as these things begin to unlock, what I do as a trainer is I'm here to help that student unlock whatever it is inside that soul that allows them to share that gift.
Nice. Did you have I'll describe it as an aha moment when you were young that set you on this path? Now I know you come from a musical family. Was there something in church or something in your great uncle's life that put you on this path?
For music, or music as a performer, or music in just general speaking, because I feel like I have like a lot of different relationships with music. It's complicated. I mean, there was always singing around me. There was always music and vocals, and there were always people writing songs. Like my aunt's one of the most prolific songwriters I know. She just makes them up on a dime. She doesn't consider this a skill set. It's just something she does. If somebody has a special occasion in the family, she's going to make them a little song, and it makes everybody happy. And you remember those types of things. So I never looked at it, I would say, as a professional thing for me until I was about maybe 10 or 11 or so. And then my father hired the artist D'Angelo. And D'Angelo, who just recently passed away in September, he's a fantastic soul artist, but he was my choir director as a kid. And so he ended up from there at like 18 years old. He's in high school. So this high school kid is, working with this youth and young adult group. But as a young musician, he took me very seriously and was talking to me about my songs. He taught the choir a song that I taught him, and he would show me little things on piano, and he just really nurtured that in me. Like I said, I can teach you a song. He's like, no, you can't. And it was Jesus Is Just All Right With Me by the Doobie Brothers. And then he taught the choir to sing it and had them march into. I just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. I thought that was the coolest thing. And of course, I was smitten, and that I was just, wow, this is a possibility. This guy I know as a kid who I look up to, made it in life and signed a contract to be a professional singer. Then we didn't see him for a while. And then I saw him on TV. And it was just kind of like, wow. So it was interesting. My father went with him to work on his contracts and stuff like that. It was just an interesting thing to watch the artist unfold. And so that gave me a possibility that, okay, well, that could be serious to pursue. But I was all the time playing, and I was a classical cellist in third grade. So I was already pursuing symphony, thinking about that. And then in high school, also, I switched from there to trumpet. So just always music.
Was the choir, did you sing from hymnals or did you learn the music and the parts more by ear?
Both. I went to all types of different churches. My father is a professor of religious studies. And so my family's very heavily, church on all sides. So from my family, actually, my parents met because their parents founded a church together. So they met at ages 7 and 11, and those two families founded this church. Memphis is the land of churches. It's the Bible Belt. So, there may be like 7,000 churches in Memphis alone. And we're not even talking about the surrounding areas. We're just talking about the city. So, it's just, there was always a choir. There was always, me being a religious studies kid coming up with my dad being both in school and practicing. I was just always at church. And I was always at somebody's church, whether it was my own or anyone else's.
On the other hand, okay, Memphis is the city of churches. It's also the city of Beale Street and honky tonks and etc. And so I noticed in your bio you're talking about I believe it's your great uncle Wilroy Sanders.
Yes.
Did you get to experience any of his life? Did you see him perform, etc.?
Oh, absolutely. And see, that's the other side. Yes, it's the land of honky tonks and clubs, which I began performing in at age 14 and started performing on Beale Street there. So I saw my uncle more than most people because he was down there playing the same clubs I was. And that's the reason our bond was so close. I saw him more than the family because he was out working and so was I. And we became close as a result of this. But it also allowed me to realize how separate our family is really from this actual situation. They're not involved at all, really. And in fact, we are the black sheep. I mean, I feel like people are coming around to it now that blues is no longer like as prominent as it was, but there's definitely still the stigma of you're playing blues. That means you're in opposition to the church now. That means your opposition. So my price of admission, I used to have a club gig on Beale Street every Saturday night. That was one of my shows. I probably played about 3-4 nights a week, even as a high schooler. I was ambitious for music. And Saturday nights, our set began at midnight and it ended at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Well, of course, this caused a big uproar at home for me and with, the deacons in my church or whatever. No one was happy about it. But my dad was like, hey, she's got to pursue her passions in her life and we should allow her to pursue her dreams. And my mom's like, well, if you're going to hoot with the owls all night, you got to fly with the eagles in the morning. So you will be at church at the end of that, however long that gig goes. We'll see you at Sunday school. So
I can imagine you taking a change of clothes to the gig, So
it was just the worst. It gave me a strong work ethic, but boy, that was awful because honestly, I wonder if it did worse because I'm just driving really fast to get back to church on time at this point. What if the show goes long? What if we don't finish till like 6 a.m., 7? That could happen. Now I got to hurry up and get ready and go to church. He doesn't know I was burning it up a little bit on the expressway, but I made it to church. And then, of course, I was having the responsibility of singing in the choir. So it was the cost.
Wow. What was your average bread that you got for singing, till 5 a.m.?
It was not a lot. I mean, musicians talk about, that $100 limitation. Well, I mean, we got a band of eight kids in there. It's like, so, we're not going to make more than like maybe just from like a baseline $80, something like that. On a good night, maybe 150 each. But then if we're going to play, we got to also then that's like what we would make on our baseline, but then we're going to try to play for tips and stuff. We're going to try to make sales and stuff like that, which it was easier to do in those days. I feel like there was a lot more street action, we could take our busking out on the street. The way our club was set up, we were a band in the window. So, you could kind of like walk down Bill Street and then we can come out there and, grab our little tip jars and do our thing.
Did you have a horn section?
Absolutely. We had a 3-piece horn section.
And
We were a big
everybody learned their parts. I'm curious about the rehearsal, how you all got together and made this happen.
We believed in rehearsal. It's just a different world now working with people, all of us. And so this is funny because this is another thing I talked to Reggie Workman about. One of my favorite bands to listen to was, I love Booker Little. I love Lee Morgan. Reggie's on so many recordings that I dig. And I said, well, what was it like working with Booker Little, who's this prominent Memphis trumpet player who we all love and respect? And for me, compositionally, I just love Booker Little, just such a innovative thinker. And he just said, we were guys, young, just living the same life. And so it was kind of like that for me and my band. Coincidentally, my band was made up of guys who had seen me singing at church when they're students of my dad's. And they were kind of made to come to a church for a school of assignment or something. And so they ended up seeing me sing at church one of these days. And then I ended up in their band. And our first gig was something like MTV2 comes to, like the river. So we're performing on the river. We're doing like these Limp Bizkit openers and things like that. And I was kind of kicked right into gear there. And then, but simultaneously, I'm playing these jazz gigs too. So I'm working with blues musicians, jazz musicians, rock musicians. They're all older than me because I'm like 14, 15 years old. But the key is we're all very good friends and we all spend a lot of time together. We're in multiple bands. So rehearsal maybe 2-3 nights a week, but then maybe closer to 2 because we've all got gigs together in the different bands. So Wednesday night, I had like my 5-piece trio. I had a trio, I had a 5-piece, I had a duo, I sang with a big band, and then I had my like rock, funk, soul band. And then I'm at high school, just maintaining my my regular life. It's like Superman Clark Kent. No one knows me here at high school. I loved it. Like over here, I'm just kind of like doing my work. And then over here at night, Wednesday nights, I'm at the High Tone with my bobtet, so it was great.
Wow, you had it covered. I can't help but comment on the fact that your great uncle Will Roy Sanders apparently had 18 children.
Yeah, something like, maybe closer to 24. So he was a busy fella.
And To handle all that as a musician, that's really saying something.
Well, it means usually you are gone. Well, for him, he was gone a lot. Like he was working a lot or just trying to, make ends meet. That can be taken several ways. A lot of people are like, well, you're always gone. Well, somebody's got to eat. They didn't make very much money. And he was definitely a blues man. So, it's just the money's not there. So everybody's like out also trying to work as well. So those younger children, but keep in mind, he comes from a farm family.
Oh,
And so all of our family basically came from the, Mississippi Delta Hill Country, and they moved to Memphis.
when it came to recording, did you have a goal as what kind of singer you wanted to be? You were doing so many different things, but people will say if you're going to put out a record, you can't. It's not wise to open with a blues tune and then do a jazz tune and then do a folk tune. In other words, what was your persona going to be on record?
Well, when I really got bitten with the bug to know that I wanted to do any type of music, I was already really heavy into jazz. Like I just started out just taking to that really, really quickly. So when I was a kid, I always wanted music. I've been I walked to a piano. The guy who I walked to won't let me live it down to this day. He's like, I was always sitting at pianos. So if there was a piano there, I'm there. Music was just such a part of my life. Like even if we're in church as a baby, I'm walking around the church, I'm gonna get to this piano. So I always loved to listen to music, and even at night, constant music. So it got to the point where I had a deal that I had to make with my parents. Like, okay, if you're gonna listen to music all night long, then you'll have to listen to music with no lyrics. And that just kind of narrowed my choices down. So I had like basically jazz, classical to choose from. This was the era of cassettes. So so I didn't have a whole, it wasn't like I could go to YouTube and be like, oh, I'll pull up this playlist. No, it was like I had a couple of cassettes. I got some Mozart, I got some Bach, I got, some different things like that. But the radio did have all night channels like jazz and classical. So I was able to really get into listening to a whole lot of jazz. So at that point, I was automatically listening to music like a composer. So I'm automatically thinking about things in parts. I'm automatically orchestrating. Even at 7 8 years old, I'm already thinking about these things. I'm writing operas. I'm thinking about how would I want this to be. So it was just such a part of my world growing up. I think that I never separated that. I just sought out sounds and like musically. So getting into Duke Ellington, he's beyond category. Now, this is what he's pushing. He's saying, look, it really doesn't have a category what I'm doing here. It may come out sounding this way, but I'm aiming for these things. And so that kind of took that to heart. And I noticed how Duke managed to get to the personality of every member of his band. You know them. You can tell their sound. They're distinct within a major unit. I loved this. I was like, I'm into the whole band, I'm into the whole group, and I just love the idea that you could be that distinctive in a big body and that he doesn't feel any type of threat about this. He let them be their own selves. He was a gorgeous band leader himself. He's like the man of the hour, but yet you knew all the Ellington bands. You knew the small bands, you knew the big bands, if Johnny Hodges breaks off and does this, Paul Gonsalves, like I loved all those guys. And so that really got me into it.
Excellent. I want to backtrack just a tad because your parents said, okay, you can stay up late, listen to your cassettes, but it has to be instrumental music. Why
Yeah,
did they?
they didn't let me stay up late, but they said you can drift off with instrumental music because we don't want random things in the subconscious. So we want to be able to have you thinking about these things. So in my case, it was going to be some melodies. So I'm thinking about melodies all night long, as long as I'm up, as
Yeah.
long as I'm.
That was wise of them. They gave you a gift there.
They did. And so now I'll know songs I don't even know why I know the song. I have an idea about the resolution of the song before the song ends, and I'm like, that makes sense. you know, and this was always something I was doing even at an early age because of that, because of the way I'm constantly listening.
Well, I'm happy to say I did the same thing, but my delivery system was a transistor radio about this big.
Oh, see, you got to get it how you can. The thing is, you tried to get it. That's the thing. My uncle Wilroy did not have a guitar, but everybody knows about the guitar he built, like this Planck system that he built and made his own electric guitar because he wanted it that bad. And I think that's the thing that's lacking today. Most of the times, I'm not seeing younger students wanting to hear sounds. I'm seeing them wanting to seek fame. And I'm kind of like, I could, you could look at go about this a couple different ways, but if we're wondering why we're not getting the musicality and we're not getting the intrigue, it's because people are focused in a different direction. Like these guys are the guys I listen to are trying to figure out flatted fifths. They have things that they have struggles that they're puzzling over. It's something that's driving them to want to know something. And that's the way I look at all of the music. Like, why does this sound this way? Why does this artist approach that this way? And for me, it's the curiosity that makes me a creative musician. And that makes it hard to peg me in one area or another. But you can trust that I'm going to study the fundamental of every area because that's what it's owed.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to play something here. See if you can name this tune.
Mm.
It's getting dark now, the horizon's turning red. Like the embers dying slowly in my bed, they used to burn. And how they differ.
Oh, that's some Candace Ivory.
And I'm fascinated by the title as well as the music.
Well, because that tune kind of woke up. I woke up and I like had a dream, and that tune is that dream, and it's me hitchhiking in this dolly painting, and it literally came out just like this. So I woke up from sleep and I basically made this song.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And at that time, a friend of mine had lent a Nord 3 to the studio. So I was stoked to use those synths and play all. I was like, oh man, we got the Nord strings. Let's go. So the gadgetry, I was really excited to
Yeah,
put it
yeah,
in there.
that's a point. I've had that experience where you've got this idea and the synthesizer gives it life of a certain setting or something, and it
Hmm.
really helps it come out. And sometimes you feel like you're cheating. Like, well, I wouldn't have thought of this if it hadn't been for this cool thing, but we all have our
That's what
tools.
they're there for. It's
That's
there for that reason. We're supposed to use it. And I definitely tried to use every synth I could get my hands on for that particular album. If anybody wanted to donate instruments, which a lot of people did, I have things like, a chaoscillator. Like I had the chaos pad on the second album, but this is Love Music's like the third part. So I have the chaoscillator, which is the mini chaos pad, which is so much fun. But that particular tune should play out in headphones like a movie. And you should get like definitely almost Tarantino vibes. It's a creepy little story.
Now, have you worked with producers? I know you did on the Memphis Mini um, recording. Have you ever like butted heads with producers about how things should go in the studio?
Oof, I used to a lot as I guess when I was starting out because I felt like people didn't really understand the voice. I wouldn't say I butted heads because the way I try to always tell people, you want to get hired. So you want to make sure that you understand when you got a producer versus an executive producer who is paying for this. And so I try to take orders. I look at myself as a gunslinger, a hired gun in the studio. So when I am producing, I am in charge. And so then, and that has usually been the case, especially on my last albums. When the Levee Breaks, that was a big deal to have Charlie Hunter produce me because no one's really produced my projects. But when it comes to me working with others, when you get me in the studio, I am at your service. And so it's a matter of what do you need me to do? And then I need to go in there and execute that. And I will make it happen. How did you say it? And then I'll say, and thank you very much for my check.
You have to teach, you know, you have to teach your students that stuff as well. That's really important. And
You
you
do.
know, you have to keep your phone ringing. You know, if you go in there and you're not cooperative, your phone will not ring again.
I'm not going to argue with somebody about their vision. I'm there to help them see that vision through to the best of my ability. And sometimes people, well, maybe it's not you. That doesn't usually happen to me, but it has happened to some of my students. And I just say a gig or any type of experience like that, take them all. It's all a learning experience. Every gig is a learning experience. Be grateful and appreciative to have that trust with your band or your for yourself to put yourself in that position to learn something new because you're going to learn something new on every single gig. I swear you will.
Even
You
if it's what
will.
not to do. You know, you can
Exactly.
negative experience, you learn something from that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've had some crazy gigs. I've had some great, crazy recording sessions where you just have to show up and deliver, and it lets you know how good are you. There's not very many situations I'm going to be afraid in, and I can trust myself. And that's just the consistency of doing that over and over again throughout the years. And so I think people want it. I want it now. It's not always there right away. I mean, if I try to remind people, and my mom loves to remind people, we did not think you were going to be a singer after your first situation because I had a talent show where I kind of got laughed. I wouldn't say I got laughed off stage because I didn't leave, but but they were laughing. I will say it was the fifth grade class, and it was basically because I did an a cappella version. I'm starting to sing. I don't have a microphone technique. I'm basically singing with the mic really close up. Everything's loud. The drums are just, and I didn't realize, just pull back because I'm nervous. This is my first public.
What song
No
were you
one's
what song were you singing?
the greatest love of all, of course. And
Oh,
it's a Whitney
yes.
Houston song on top of this. So all of these things together, just it was the perfect cauldron. So this happened all before lunch period. And
All before lunch.
and I remember it because I didn't want to go to lunch. At that point, the teachers are laughing. I'm seeing them back here. Like it was pretty funny. But I took a note of all who was laughing out there. I said, I see my friends out there. I'm going to remember this. So the teacher comes up and he's like, well, thank you very much. Thank you, Miss Candace. Have a seat. I didn't have a seat. I went backstage. And of course, my teacher came to get me and she's like, well, you need to come back out. I was like, I don't want to come to lunch. And she was like, well, you have to. It's a law. It's mandated. You have to come to lunch. I'm like, well, all right. If it's against the law, I guess I don't want to be a lawbreaker. I'll go ahead and go. And at that time, they were playing Beatles music during the lunch periods, not the real Beatles, but a music version where during that period, it was like 10 minutes. You couldn't speak during the 10-minute music Beatles situation. So that just really made me upset even further that lunch period. But I didn't end up singing at the talent show, but I just filed it away as something to think about because at that time I was singing in the all city choir. I'd gotten myself in those things, and my family didn't really know too much about it. It was my own personal musical pursuits. So I said, I'll file that away. And I just did. I thought about what did I do different? What could I do differently? And just for maybe about 2-3 years, I didn't think about it. I didn't try to perform live at all. I didn't try to do any more talent shows, but I came back to it probably around the 10th grade. And at that point, I knew it wasn't me. And people are like, well, how did you come back from that? Because I knew all those people were wrong. That's how it was.
Right.
I just
You don't lack for confidence. I love it. Right. Try.
that saved me. That's literally, I probably wouldn't do this if it wasn't the foolhardiness of, someone's determination to be right.
All right. Try this.
Won't you please come back to me? He got the best old singer, any bumpy I ever seen.
Why did you go there?
I ask myself that every day. Like, why did I go there, Monk? Oh.
For our listeners, that was Memphis Minnie, and can you tell me what she's saying?
She is saying, "Bumblebee, bumblebee, please come back to me. Oh, you are the sweetest. You got the sweetest honey out of any bumblebee I've ever seen." Well, my grandmother speaks about Memphis Minnie being in the house, and I'm sure my Uncle Wilroy knew her, but there was no real connection for me with Memphis Minnie right away. Like, it just seems like it was a gradual thing. Like, it kept being introduced to me over time. I would say the first way I probably was introduced to her was through Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, because had they not covered, her being this kind of school teacher like performer sitting on the ice box, I was like, well, that's an interesting thing to write. Who's this lady performer playing the guitar? I didn't think very much about it, but I realized as I go back and think about when's the actual first time I heard about Memphis Minnie. And it's kind of like she's always been there in the background, low key. And just like she's been in the background of the blues world, as most women have been. So the reason I probably approached Memphis Minnie in the first place, in addition to her 50th anniversary of her death, because that's when the album came out, it was just kind of serendipitous. But the real point I wanted to make was that there's a group of women here who never get spoken about, who get largely overlooked. And my great grandmother was a woman who listened to her, and it's a very similar story. That's my Uncle Wilroy's mom. And her story is just like that, where it's pretty much a silent pioneer, a silent trailblazer who's overlooked in the masculine efforts of everyone else. And she's literally responsible for all of these ideas. She's giving Muddy these ideas, and all of these people are playing her stuff, yet no one can say her name. She's not as important in the realms of history. And I just saw that so much. And it feels like a story that's real common.
Rosetta Tharpe as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's countless others. The blues women have the, the very unfortunate situation of usually being, there's not a lot of parents involved. They're parentless usually. They don't have a lot of family history. They could be very poor. So you don't have the records. These are the outcasts of society. These are people living in a subcultural world. So while we're finding it cool and favorable now, these women, these types of musicians are not looked well upon in society. Even in my own uncle's case, part of the reason I'm here is because my family did not know who he was in the world. They looked down on him for the choices that they felt he made, and they felt that his musical pursuits were frivolous and kind of a wasted effort. So I kind of wanted to get to the bottom of this, and I saw ways to kind of parallel discover my own story, parallel discover Memphis Minnie's story, and tell my uncle's story, because he had all those children, but he called me to be the person to handle all the arrangements. so because I know him better, and so it's just kind of like one of those things. I knew him in the world of his profession that could be looked at in a way they don't know him.
Oh, wow. That's deep.
It
Well,
was. It's been a lot to unpack for me.
I'm fascinated by what you did with that last song.
And I'll tell the whole world he got all the stanger I need.
Oh, I know you love reggae. We got added a little Taj Mahal influence.
Yeah, he's got all the stinger I need. How did that groove come about?
Well, one thing I know Charlie wanted to do on that album was try to approach things in a pretty unique, different way. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know if this audience is going to be ready to approach things in a unique and different way, Charlie. So I was quite concerned knowing how conservative people can be about that genre and the rules of it. There's some very strict rules about blues that people want to, ignore or not observe. And you got to check a lot of boxes to be able to do it. It's just not, you're not just going to walk in and be like, I play blues. You're not. And there's so many ways to go about it. What I liked about Charlie's approach was he listened to it and he was like, well, let me think about a different way to relate this tune. And I had to trust him to do it. As that's what you have to do with a producer. And for a project like Memphis Minnie, that was huge for me because, he's not from where I'm from. He's not from Walls, which that's where Memphis Minnie's from. I've got a family group that lives pretty much or works pretty much the next neighborhood over. And it's like, it's a personal record. So for me to trust someone to do that was pretty huge. And I had to let go of my own preconceived notions about how should this sound? Should this be like we're doing hill country? We doing what country blues? What are we going to do here? So it was a big, big thing to step out and try it even for me.
It fascinated me with those songs that had all those double entendres to them, and you just mentioned your great grandmother listening to them, and
Yeah.
like she's listening on a Saturday night, and then tomorrow morning she'll be at the church.
I was like, that's pretty risque for my great grandma to be listening because they definitely had us at church a lot. I was pretty surprised to hear that because my grandmother told me this, which we had a lot of records, but she told me this. So this would have been when she was a little girl, and she just turned 88 last month.
Wow. Well, at that time, if she was listening as a little girl, she might have thought the song was really about a bumblebee.
She may have been thinking. And I believe that. I know she didn't see any double entendres coming. She's a sweet lady. I won't tell her anything different.
I get the sense that your your students are lucky because you're not one of the. I mean, there's music professors now who, just because the way things are in the music business, they'll go from college, they'll get a degree, and then they'll get a terminal degree, and then they'll start teaching. Um, but you're a gigging performer, and there's no substitute for that to know how to pass on knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing that is not being offered anymore because of the deep saturation we have, like getting gigs in live music, the relationships between, you know, uh, musicians and the venues and things like that. I knew the club owners. We were close. Those club owners invested in me and I invested in their club. It's a mutual relationship. Whereas now it's just kind of like, hey, pay me and then, my band's going to come in and do some awesome stuff. Or, come in and play and we'll give you $50 and something to eat. That's not how it was when I started playing music at all. The relationships I had with the club owners was absolutely phenomenal. And we recognized that, if I have a residency, like I had a couple of them where it was, you're playing here one night a week. I would be at the High Tone. I had some Sunday nights at a restaurant called Automatic Slims. Well, that's where all the hot shots go in town. It's a big deal. I booked my first New Year's gig there. And the restaurant owner, Karen Carrier, she still has amazing high level restaurants in Memphis to this day. You can still go to her beauty shop. That's one of her restaurants. Or I think Bar DKC is one of hers. And so it's just kind of like the investment. Oh, this is a young artist working. She's got a trio. She's got a 5-piece. She can put together any type of band. Would you like to perform here with your 5-piece for New Year's Eve? Sure, I'm 15. This is a great gig for me. Like, I knew they were going to be charging $90 a plate for that show. It's a big deal for me to play there. So this is a big deal for her to give me this type of responsibility. And then so we're playing weddings. I'm responsible for making sure these events go. So it's a big deal and it's a whole lot of responsibility. Whereas it's not now, you're seeing people who are like, oh, I'm going to go to YouTube and learn how to do this. I got a gig. I've never played a show in my life. Well, now you're calling me. I got to help you get ready to play a show, but you got the gig. Yeah, and so that's kind of what we're going through now. I had to go out and successfully hunt down gigs, walk them down. Here's my press kit. Here's my cassette. Please listen to it. These types of things where now it's just a call or an email. Maybe it's a follow-up or there's not the same level of investment I'm seeing.
You had early on, I'm trying to remember exactly what you said about the blues, that years ago it was more in the public eye and ear, and so the church people were, sort of afraid of it, and now it's not so much in the public ear and eye, and so it's not that big a deal. Did I paraphrase you correctly?
Well, sort of, because it's still a big deal. Now it's just getting ridiculous because we're getting a lot of misinformation. Another reason I wanted to do some of these things is to just make sure people know that some of us still know how these things work and we are not fooled by it. Like the industry. So there's the blues culture. I come from there. There's the blues industry. That's what I've been recently working in. And then there's blues scholarship. And I've always been working there. And that's the academy. None of those worlds speak to each other. And they don't. And honestly, they shouldn't. Because what happens when you get the industry involved, you basically get the appropriation of the culture here. And so then it takes the academics to come in, and we'll have to sit up here and like establish these timelines for people. You're making up things because there's no one to historically check it. People feel like there's no true blues history or lineage or traditions that they can draw from. I don't know why they think this in the industry, but it's been a thing. And I'm here to dispel that notion. There's traditions, there's definitely a lineage, that there's paths that you got to go through. And there's also people you'll have to name as influential if you play something. And they're going to be, and Memphis Minnie is going to be the top one, especially if you're going to be listening to Muddy Waters or any, any of these guys, John Lee Hooker. You're going to be listening to Memphis Minnie because she influenced pretty much all that.
I've always been a little aggravated or mystified how you can read a whole book about the blues, which I just did, one more, and the 12 bar blues as a musical form gets short shrift all the time. And as a musician, you learn to play like hundreds of songs, and you're going, oh, it's a 12 bar blues. And jazz musicians play the blues, and early rock and roll is almost nothing but sped up blues with goofy lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I don't know what they would really say about it, but to me, it's like in classical music with a sonata form or whatever. Like, I don't know why it's not more of a celebrated creation of the African American culture, that they created this musical form that's like a chameleon. Whatever you want it to be, you can fit it into this template.
Well, the reason for this is just because it's so misunderstood, this lineage. It's intentionally diluted, and it's like it's pretty frustrating as an artist to see it. This is why I called my latest album New Southern Vintage. And I produced this one just to make sure everybody could hear. We're covering a lot of different styles, but what people need to understand about the South is it's not, a monolith. It's there. Each Southern state is its own country. So if you say you got Memphis blues, that's different from hill country blues, different from a Delta blues. In fact, the term hill country is relatively new, coming from the industry, to be able, like, we didn't think about these terms like this, but that industry term on that is what they're using to market the package to sell. And so that's not exactly the way people from that area really think about it, but that's the way that it's packaged to sell. So that's just something, once again, the culture's over here, the industry's over here, and then you got the scholarship. Well, if you're from hill country, well, you're going to be playing, this style of blues. You're listening to Arthur Turner, you're listening to, Robert Belfort, these types of artists that are coming from this region. So it's just important for people to know you can have 12 bar blues, but you can also have 1 or 2 bar blues. You can have a riff. It's all subjective to where you are coming from. And no two people are gonna, like, you can't put me in a place like I'm in from Memphis, and then I got my friend from Holly Springs. He's not gonna play that same song, Old Black Maddie. We'll play it our way from Memphis. He's gonna play it his way from Holly Springs. It's not the same, even though that's an hour away. It's an hour away from a world. It's a world away is what it is.
I
And so
remember
if we
after
don't get those understood, that's what people aren't understanding, is that it's not the same. It's not all the same.
our gig together, you showed me a page. I think it was from a blues organization that was, you were nominated for an award,
Yes.
and they had put you in this rather mystifying category.
Yes. It's soul blues, I believe.
Okay. Was it do you think it was an attempt because, as you just mentioned, there's so many different types of blues from all these different areas? Have they created all these categories to try to deal with that?
Because this is an industry situation, it does not speak to the culture, nor does it speak to the scholarship. It's alone on its own. And in this case, that's a catch-all phrase for Black women. Soul blues is where Black women go. Because I didn't make a soul blues album. I made a traditional blues album. And the album before that is a contemporary blues album. This has been observed in the Recording Academy. There's no question about the types of albums I made, but for whatever reason, this entity is choosing to throw me in a catch-all category. Now, however people want to look at that, they should. I would encourage them to look at that because that's not okay and it's not even right. It's not correct. Neither scholarship nor culture would observe that category because even that category is mystifying. It's not Southern soul, it's soul blues. And no one can tell me what that means. So they'll need to describe or give us an idea what that category means. Because right now it just looks like a catch-all phrase for where they want to put Black women that they don't want to put in traditional blues because apparently Black women cannot be in traditional blues at this time. Or you'd have to fit some sort of category to be in traditional blues. I don't know the parameters, but it looks like that.
I can see if they had an actual award ceremony for this and you win and you get up there and you say what you just said to me. I'd like to picture it.
Well, I'm sure they would be concerned, but I won't be going to the award ceremony. I've let them all know I'm not going to be there. Unfortunately, I cannot attend.
All right. I wanted to wrap up with a question about your visual art, which what I've seen, I really enjoy. Was it on? Did it come from your music? Were you looking for another creative path? It was like an offshoot.
It's always been something I wanted to do, but I never had the time because I always did. Music was everything. It's always everything I've ever done. And so visual art is a defiant world for me because people think I'm defiant musically. And it's interesting because you do get to places where you're like, okay, I'm expanding on a boundary. Okay, I'm exploring what I want to do and where I want to be here musically. But obviously you'll check out different things and you need to process. And so you can get a writer's block even in tunes. When it came to the visual art for me, I just feel like it's a world that I still struggle with freedom. And I like the fact that I recognize it. So, drawing forces you to really think about what you're doing. You have to be intentional. It shapes, there's rules of shading. And if you're mixing colors, there's these rules. Okay, how do you want to put this amount, 3 parts light, 3 parts dark. There's all these things to know about it and the rules of abstracts of the different mediums that you're going to use. And I just noticed that I was still restraining myself artistically. And so it's been a great measure of like, how free do I feel to really write or put down what I'm thinking? Or how free am I feeling to just draw what's in my mind? And do I even know what I want to draw? Can I make this be what I want it to be? Or will it be a surprise? So there's all this like new stuff in the visual arts medium for me that it's fun. It's just a different type of challenge, and it's a way that I can learn about myself in a new way. And I'm really like, oh, I didn't realize I was that pent up. I didn't want those. I didn't want to make those spackles go over there. Like, well, why is that bothering me? You know, it's just things like this that I'm just kind of getting curious about. And it's been a whole lot of fun. I have a lot of artists that I study and that I look into, but learning who I am as a visual artist has been pretty interesting.
Do you ever have trouble knowing? This is a music question as well. If you're working on something in the studio or a visual art work, sensing when it's done. Leave it, it's done.
It's hard. The worst thing for me right now is selling art. I'm working on it because people want to buy it. I actually, so when I was on tour in Spain, my brother knew that I had a plumber come by who wanted to buy a piece. And he was staying at my place. And he was like thinking he did me this great service. And he's like, guess what? You know, this plumber came by, he wanted to buy this piece. I was like, oh my gosh, I was totally bluffing with that guy. I wasn't gonna sell that guy my painting. It's not even signed yet, but he really wanted it. And it's funny because giving paintings away, like if I say, all right, here's a painting, Monk, this painting is you. You should have it. This is no problem for me. The idea of selling paintings is still something that I'm getting used to. I've been doing it over the years, but then you're like wondering, what's happening with that painting? Like what's going on? You're thinking about it. Like it's an extension of you. It really becomes a personal thing. And I'm just kind of like, did this guy really like this painting enough to buy this painting for me? You know, it is a pretty nice painting. It's one of my favorite paintings of myself. And then the thing is, you like a piece, so should you sell this piece or should you keep this piece? Then you just got 20 or 30 paintings in your room, which is this is where I'm at now. So I'm learning how to detach from the work and say it's over, and then I make myself varnish it and like sign and varnish them and like put them away. And then unless it's like something I have in mind for someone, then I know, okay, I'm going to sell that eventually. But they become little friends.
And it's so different from a musical product because you have the music is still there. You can listen to it. It's in a physical thing that you can keep. And with a painting, it's one and done, and it's gone. Unless you
And then
make prints, I guess.
it just feels like, you're asking people, okay, so you guys want this piece in your house? It's going to be there, guys. Like it's going to live in your house. Are you okay with that? Like you're going to like don't throw it, don't send it to a yard sale, right? Like, you're thinking all these thoughts about where's this painting going? But no, honestly, all the folks who've gotten paintings from me, they always showcase where they are. I don't really worry about them once they're in the home, but
Okay.
it's still like, you're right. Is this painting done? Sometimes I don't know. And I'll look at it for like a year or two. I'll give it time. I won't get rid of it.
Well, Candace, you're a joy to talk to and to perform with as well. I hope the
So
opportunity
much
comes up
fun.
again. And
I hope I didn't bore you too much
no,
on this.
no, you just shared some wonderful stories, and your philosophies about music and the creative work are really refreshing.
Hey, thank you. I'm starting to unpack it more as I learn myself. I'm learning some new skills. I had a conference that I spoke at, and these ladies, one of the ladies sent me her handmade guitar that she built. And so,
Oh,
so Elaine built this guitar. So now I'm I have the burden of having to learn how to play this. So I have 4 guitars in the corner, and this will be a new private challenge. You'll know, but it's a private challenge.
okay. All right. Well, best of luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you. Hope to see you guys soon.
All right.